52 teams of 8 antique rival wisdoms compete to do the future a favor and guide a life at stop2think.com. Team quote 39.1. Aspire rather to be a hero than merely appear one. Baltasar Gracian 1601–1658. This insightful quote from Gracian, a Spanish Jesuit and philosopher, cuts to the heart of authentic virtue versus mere appearance. It's particularly meaningful coming from someone who wrote extensively about practical wisdom and social conduct during Spain's Golden Age. The distinction Gracian draws between being and appearing touches on a timeless tension in human behavior. It's often easier and more immediately rewarding to cultivate the appearance of heroic qualities than to develop them genuinely. But Gracian suggests we should aim higher, for actual heroism, rather than its superficial trappings. What makes this observation especially powerful is its implicit acknowledgement that we have a choice. The word aspire suggests conscious effort and intention. We can choose to pursue the more challenging path of developing genuine heroic qualities, courage, integrity, selflessness, rather than settling for their outward show. This wisdom feels particularly relevant in our current era of social media and personal branding, where the temptation to curate appearances, rather than develop substance, is stronger than ever. Gracian's advice to prioritize authentic heroic qualities over their mere appearance could be seen as a 17th-century antidote to modern performative virtue. Team quote 39.2. All who joy would win must share it. Happiness was born a twin. Lord Byron 1788–1824. This beautifully crafted observation from Byron expresses a profound truth about the nature of happiness through poetic metaphor. True to his romantic style, he uses the image of twins to convey how joy is inherently connected to sharing. The first part, all who joy would win must share it, suggests that happiness isn't something we can truly experience in isolation. The use of win is interesting, implying that joy is something achieved rather than simply received, and that sharing is key to this achievement. The second part, happiness was born a twin, is particularly clever in how it personifies happiness as one of a pair, suggesting that sharing isn't just beneficial to happiness, but fundamental to its very nature. The capital T in twin gives it an almost mythological quality, as if stating a universal truth about joy's dual nature. What makes this insight especially powerful is how it challenges individualistic notions of happiness. Byron suggests that joy isn't just enhanced by sharing, it's incomplete without it. The metaphor of twins implies that sharing isn't an afterthought to happiness, but rather an inseparable part of its existence from birth. Team quote 39.3. Tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy. Isaac Newton 1643–1727. This perceptive observation from Newton is particularly interesting coming from someone who, despite his brilliant scientific mind, was known to have difficult relationships with many of his contemporaries, including his famous disputes with Leibniz over calculus. It suggests he understood the value of diplomatic communication, even if he didn't always practice it himself. The quote elegantly defines tact by connecting two seemingly opposing goals, conveying your message clearly while maintaining harmonious relationships. Newton's use of the word art is telling, suggesting that tact requires skill, practice, and finesse rather than just following a set of rules. What makes this insight especially valuable is how it acknowledges that the challenge isn't just about what we say, but how we say it. It implies that the same truth or point can be conveyed in different ways, some of which create enemies and others which don't. This understanding seems particularly relevant in our current era of social media and polarized discourse, where making points often seems to take precedence over maintaining relationships. The wisdom here also suggests that making enemies is not an inevitable consequence of speaking truth or making important points. It's possible to be both honest and diplomatic, truthful and tactful. Team quote 39.4. Convictions are more dangerous foes of truth than lies. Nietzsche 1844 to 1900. This is a characteristically provocative observation from Nietzsche that challenges our usual assumptions about truth and falsehood. Coming from one of philosophy's most influential critics of accepted wisdom, it strikes at the heart of how beliefs can become barriers to understanding. The insight is particularly powerful because it suggests that firm convictions, even when we believe them to be true, can be more damaging to the pursuit of truth than outright lies. Why? Because lies can be disproven and dismissed, but convictions become part of our identity, making them resistant to challenge or change. They can act as filters that prevent us from seeing evidence that contradicts them. What makes this especially relevant is how it speaks to the human tendency to defend our established beliefs, even in the face of contrary evidence. Nietzsche suggests that our most deeply held convictions can actually become intellectual prison cells, limiting our ability to perceive and accept new truths. This wisdom feels particularly pertinent in our current era of ideological polarization and confirmation bias, where strongly held convictions often seem to prevent productive dialogue and learning across different perspectives. It's a reminder that sometimes our greatest obstacle to understanding isn't external falsehood, but our own certainty. Team quote 39.5. Cowards die many times before their actual deaths. Julius Caesar 100 44 BC. This powerful quote from Caesar reflects his understanding of how fear can paralyze and diminish life, gained through his experiences as a military commander and political leader. The observation is particularly poignant given his own famous end, facing his assassins rather than fleeing. The metaphor is masterful in how it equates giving in to fear with experiencing a kind of death. Each time a person backs away from a challenge due to cowardice, Caesar suggests they experience a small death, a diminishment of life and possibility. The use of many times emphasizes how this pattern of fearful retreat can repeatedly rob someone of life's fullness long before their physical death. What makes this insight especially powerful is how it implicitly contrasts the coward's many deaths with the brave person's fuller life. While the coward dies repeatedly through their retreats from life's challenges, the courageous person lives more completely by facing them. The wisdom feels remarkably relevant today, though in a different context from Caesar's military world. In our era, these little deaths might come from avoiding professional risks, ducking difficult conversations, or shrinking from opportunities for growth out of fear. Caesar's words remind us that avoiding risk out of fear can be its own form of loss. Team quote 39.6. Anger is never without a reason, but seldom with a good one. Benjamin Franklin 1706 to 1790. This astute observation from Franklin displays his characteristic ability to balance understanding with criticism. By acknowledging that anger always has a reason, while questioning the quality of that reason, he creates a nuanced perspective on human emotion. The first part, anger is never without a reason, shows empathy and psychological insight. Franklin recognizes that anger isn't random or meaningless. It always stems from some perceived wrong or injury. This validates the universal human experience of anger as a response to something. But the second part, seldom with a good one, provides the wisdom and gentle criticism typical of Franklin's observations. It suggests that while our anger may feel justified in the moment, stepping back often reveals that the trigger wasn't worth the emotional response. This reflects Franklin's emphasis on self-control and rational thought. What makes this insight particularly valuable is how it can help us process our own anger. Rather than either completely dismissing angry feelings or fully embracing them, Franklin suggests we should acknowledge the reason for our anger, while also examining whether that reason truly merits such a response. This wisdom remains especially relevant today, when social media and instant communication can amplify angry responses before we've had time to evaluate whether our reasons are good ones. Team quote 39.7. Money can't buy love, but it improves your bargaining position. Christopher Marlowe 1564 to 1593. This witty observation from Marlowe shows his sharp understanding of both human nature and economic reality. Coming from one of Elizabethan England's most brilliant playwrights, who often explored themes of power, desire, and ambition in works like Dr. Faustus, The quote combines cynicism with humor. The first part affirms the romantic ideal that love can't be purchased, a common theme in literature and philosophy. But then Marlowe adds that pragmatic twist, acknowledging how financial security can influence relationships and attraction. It's the kind of worldly observation you might expect from someone who moved in London's theatrical circles and observed all levels of society. What makes this quote particularly clever is how it walks the line between idealism and realism. It doesn't entirely dismiss the pure notion of love being above monetary concerns, but it also doesn't ignore the practical role that financial stability plays in relationships. The use of bargaining position is especially shrewd, suggesting that while money can't directly buy love, it can create conditions that make love more likely or relationships more feasible. The insight feels remarkably modern, speaking to ongoing tensions between romantic ideals and practical realities in relationships. It's the kind of observation that maintains its relevance across centuries, because it captures something fundamentally true about human nature and social dynamics. Team quote 39.8. A mighty flame followeth a tiny spark. Dante Alighieri 1265–1321. This poetic observation from Dante, author of The Divine Comedy, captures a profound truth about how significant changes or events often begin with small, seemingly insignificant moments. It's particularly meaningful coming from someone whose own literary spark ignited a mighty flame in world literature. The metaphor works on multiple levels. In the physical world, it describes how a small ember can grow into a devastating fire. But Dante, being a master of allegory, surely meant it to apply more broadly to ideas, movements, emotions, and artistic creation. Just as his own work began with initial inspiration, before growing into one of literature's greatest achievements. What makes this insight especially powerful is its universality. We see this principle at work everywhere. Great social movements that begin with single acts of courage, scientific breakthroughs that start with minor observations, or technological revolutions that spring from modest innovations. Even in personal life, major changes often trace back to small decisions or moments. The imagery also suggests both opportunity and warning. The same principle that allows positive change to grow from humble beginnings also means we should be mindful of small negative actions that could grow into larger problems. This dual nature of the spark, its potential for both creation and destruction, adds depth to Dante's observation. And to help raise school test scores and confidence with free easy extra advantage math, spelling and reading workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free easy math wisdom workbooks with octa repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free easy alpha cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms, like pretty witty baby onesies and pretty witty kids. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence, sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think, therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults, you can clothe a whole family, city, or state. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom. Make us all wiser and kinder. And for a downloadable PDF of these team quotes, join the 52 of 8 today.